really briefly, we'll start with if you could just who your character is and how you best describe them. We can start with Luke. You're Matthew.
I play Matthew Van Weyden, the captain of the wagon train. He's got kind of an interesting job because he's been elected to this position, but he doesn't necessarily want it. But very simply, he's just trying to get, all these pioneers and settlers, across from Western Kansas to this, town in Arizona that may or may not exist.
Yeah.
I play Diamond Kittredge. She's one of 3 sisters who's been dragged by her father, played by none other than Will Patton, across the West to this hopeful dream of, the perfect life out in the West. And she's definitely a woman ahead of her time, very rebellious, and starts to realize that she may want something different for herself than what her dad has set out for her.
Yeah.
I play Juliet, who is an English woman traveling west with her husband Hugh. They are traveling towards this dream of a life, and they are naive about what their journey might entail.
Nice. Now, Isabelle, I've heard you say that this is one of your most favorite characters to play.
Yes.
Why?
Well, you're just getting introduced to Diamond in chapter 1, but when I first read all 4 scripts, I was just really honored that Kevin felt like I could grow with this character so much. I mean, the saga spans 15 years, and we really have planted a lot of Easter eggs in chapter 1 and chapter 2. But, what's different about Diamond is that her journey west is what shapes the woman that she grows into and becomes. And so it's been really incredibly difficult and fun to play a young woman who is forming her opinion and view on the world at a time like this, and how that shapes, the world that she starts to build and the town she starts to build. Yeah. And I think that that's just going to be definitely a big payoff for audiences as they continue to grow with these characters. And I think a lot of all the characters have their own journeys, but I really feel very grateful that Kevin trusted me with Diamond. I mean, she's great.
Speaking of Kevin trusting Luke, so Kevin taps you to play this role, and you learn how long this project has been in his heart and how committed and passionate he is about it. What does that do to you when accepting the role?
It means a lot to me. And at the time, I didn't know that he'd first had the idea in 1988. But knowing that it was going to be 4 parts, and knowing that, he did tell me that the day he hired me that, he'd put a lot of his own money up for it. So, for me, that just makes me want to say, hey, whatever you need, you got it. And I think we all had that feeling with Kevin, where we just realized he had so much going on. You just want to get your assignment and deliver the goods, and hopefully more than he even saw on the page, to give him more than he could expect.
For the women in the room, what does this story say about the role of women? They're very pronounced in this story. What do you think it says?
I think Kevin is sort of an archivist who has been collecting over the last 20, 30 years the unsung stories of this time. He is truly fascinated with this time. And me and Isabelle both had a wonderful time reading diaries of the women on the Oregon Trail. You can find them online. They're amazing. And so many of the stories that I read, or the diaries that I read, elements of these women's stories are injected into these films. And we don't see women as much as maybe we'd like to in Westerns, or we haven't, but they were very much there. And it's just a thrill to get to play meaty, delicious characters, and to play women that feel so familiar and yet are dealing with a completely different set of circumstances. And for me, Juliet was a dream character, like this kind of character I've dreamt about playing since I was a little girl, like difficult and a challenge to love at times, and really protective of her husband, but ultimately a survivor and gritty and moral, and just I couldn't believe that I got to do this with Kevin.
There's also a really cool element to our characters, is that, the women in the film are all stand out in such fierce ways, but our characters really have such an interaction and a bond with each other, and
they
we
really
both
inform each other's growth.
exactly, and that has been really cool to see as we've been, getting to see movie 2, is that, that plays in such a beautiful way, and it starts in movie 1. And so I'm really excited for people to see this whole saga and what Kevin has created for these women.
Agreed.